Today it's a cheesecake waffle.
Fancy spread.
Make it pretty fancy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk about Halloween Ends, Bay of Silence, First Reformed, The Isle, The Reckoning. James is going to talk about the next movie, and I'm going to talk about the last one. And I don't know if he would have said it was warrants that place in the stack, but
So you put it second last? Or?
yeah, I did.
Okay, what you put at the bottom must be
Really bad. Yeah.
okay.
So I never would have thought that a Halloween movie would have rated on the top of my stack.
Now, is this part of the series, Halloween?
Oh yeah.
And they're actually threatening to end it.
Well,
Is that
yeah. I gather this is what
You-
I mean. They have
I thought it would go on forever.
Jamie Lee Curtis in it.
You're kidding. She's
in it,
and
yeah.
this is a current release.
Well,
Way to go, Jamie
Let's
Lee
see.
Curtis.
um,
Curtis.
anyway,
Curtis.
I don't know. My eyesight is not good, and this is really hard to read.
Okay.
So,
Don't
yep,
worry.
2023. Yeah, it is very current. So,
Doesn't get much more current.
no. So anyway, it got the top of the stack rating. It was scary enough. It had enough story, and everything else was that bad. So
In other words, all the other movies were that bad.
yes, on this in the stack. The Bay of Silence. It wasn't that bad a movie. They did it pretty well, but it really bothered me. The whole idea, like the woman has an illness that she didn't disclose to her husband before they were married, before they decided to have children, and that illness is hereditary. And I'll see if it's on the box. It is not, so I cannot disclose what it is. And that really bothered me. You can't be doing that to somebody that you care about. And they made out in the movie like, oh, well, she might not have known. Oh, she would have known. She would have known. Like she was telling her husband that the pills that she was taking were for migraines or something. No, she knew. And it's ridiculous to suggest otherwise. And something terrible happens in this movie, and it is kind of covered up. And it's even the woman's actions in this are kind of dismissed because you're kind of like, well, she wasn't really responsible for her actions. You're thinking, oh no, she was, and her parents certainly were. And you're left in the end of the movie, you're left thinking, oh well, the poor woman, she'd been hard done by, and so really she was the victim. I was very bothered by this movie. So, had they not done such a good job making it, it would have gotten the bottom of the stack just because of its horrific message. First Reformed. I thought this was going to be a horror movie. It was just horrible. I have never seen Ethan Hawke do such a bad job in a movie. I have never seen a movie that he has decided to do be so bad as this one.
Well, we usually think highly of this stuff.
Yeah, I do. Mm-hmm. And I don't think highly of Amanda Seyfried or whatever her name is, but she has nice eyes. And anyway, she worked all right in this. I didn't have a problem with her in this movie, really. But I didn't really buy into Ethan Hawke's character, and it was hard to buy into. The story isn't really believable at all. There's a young man, well, really he's not that young, he's in his early 30s. But anyway, he's talking to a reverend about some issues he's having. He doesn't want to bring a child into the world. The world is terrible, and he's all upset. He's been an environmental sort of activist and stuff like that, and he's always been passive about it, really. He hasn't been aggressive. He hasn't been violent. And then something happens, and the Reverend starts thinking, and all this stuff. Well, you know, when it comes down to it, you can look at, oh, these are the top polluting businesses or companies or whatever. These are the top polluters in the world, and this and that. And you can be all up in arms about it. But who are they manufacturing things for? And if you keep growing the population will keep demanding more of that, more of whatever it is. So really, when it comes down to it, that's the problem. It's always the problem, and it's always been the problem. So, and the thought of, like, at one point, the young man, he'd asked the Reverend, he'd said, will God forgive us? And he's talking about for what we're doing to God's creations, all the animals, all the plants that are going extinct, and just having a really hard time even surviving in ditches and whatever, because there's nothing left for them. We're carving it all up. But really, you know, environmental activism begins at home, just like everything else that bothers people in this world. It begins at home, and you got to do what you can do at home and think from there. Think how it goes out from there, because that's the key thing. And when he asked that of the Reverend, I thought no Reverend would even question it. They would just say, well, God has already forgiven us for sins, Jesus, and he would go through, that's what he would say. Anyone who is a Christian, who is advising somebody, that's what they would say. Jesus died on the cross. He has already forgiven us for all the sins that humans did and will do in the future. All of them. They're all forgiven. So that's not even, will God forgive us? That's not a thought that Christians would have, especially a Reverend. So the movie itself was not believable. It really bothered me. And it wasn't well enough done to warrant me sitting through it. The Aisle. It's a little bit more interesting than one might think within the first few minutes of it. So there's some good scenery. You might want to sit through it. I don't know. The Reckoning. God, this was awful. It says from the director of The Descent and Game of Thrones. What really bothered me the most about this movie, it's a witchy sort of thing. And what bothered me the most was her makeup. Honestly, this is supposed to be Middle Ages sort of thing, and you can really see her makeup. She looks like a supermodel, the eyeliner and everything, and she's a farm wife. She's a farm wife. She would not be wearing that. And her hair, you know, she's all beautiful and everything. She's a farm wife. You didn't get that right. It doesn't matter from there on in. I don't want to have to watch this movie. Nobody would. Now, I'm going to put this over to James after, so I'm going to talk about this one first. Reunion. I don't know if this was Australian or what, but boy, it really seemed like it was. So bad. This is the kind of movie that I used to expect from Australia all the time. It's just terrible.
There have been the notable
There have been some
recently.
good ones recently, but until recently they were putting out crap. So James is going to talk about this Peter Greenaway film.
I'll try not to rant about it.
All right. I mean, I was having a bath and cooking and stuff, and luckily I got to miss most of that movie. I came in at the end and I was like, wow, this is boring and stupid.
I kind of.
Oh, you lost a...
No, I didn't.
You didn't? Awesome. Good catch.
Well, maybe my tipping the table stopped it, but my knee actually didn't stop it. Anyway, I kind of temporarily hurt my back watching.
It hit you.
Well, I was lying.
Maybe it was like a
Pillow.
stub your toe, bang your elbow thing. Maybe your back was like, if I put you through a little bit of pain, you might not feel the pain of this movie so much.
So I am going to just read this very small amount to give background for what they think is the background. There's 1931, at the height of his artistic power, Soviet filmmaker Sergei Eisenstein travels to Mexico to shoot a new film to be titled Que Viva, Viva Mexico, or Mexico, and that is Let Live Mexico, or Long Live Mexico. Pretty sure. Freshly rejected by Hollywood, and under increasing pressure returned to Stalinist Russia, Eisenstein arrives at the city of Guanajuato. That's not Guantanamo, okay. It's in Cuba, you flunkies. Not all of you guys are flunkies, I think. Many of you are.
My viewers are awesome.
What was that?
My viewers are awesome.
I hope so. Chaperoned by, I'm sure, the ones that aren't get pushed away by me.
Well, yeah, they're probably the ones that are getting my videos blocked. Click on and go, oh, that's it. Gotta get rid of her.
Chaperoned by his guide, Palomino Cañedo, something like that, he vulnerably experiences the ties between Eros and Thanatos. That's death or life and death. Love and death. So Eros has got a love. Thanatos would be something like a god of death. That's Greek, all Greek to me. But I've actually taken Greek at university. Sex and death, they explain it. I think those are drives as distinguished by Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud, to you ones out there, the few that are left. Happy to create their effects in cinema, trouble to suffer them in life. So here's a little bit of a spoiler alert, okay? So it's chaperoned by Palomino Cañedo, but Palomino is, he does the riding. He rides Eisenstein's rear end for a while.
Not Palomino.
So I gave you the spoiler alert and stuff like that.
Yeah, you were saying that you were seeing a lot of his penis, which is funny because
not Palomino's. Who knows what Palomino's was like? But the guy playing Eisenstein.
Yeah, and so we were thinking, well, like we were thinking back on other Peter Greenaway movies we've seen, and you see penises a little more often than you would
ordinarily,
think, yeah,
and maybe more than what you'd really prefer or whatever.
Yeah, like The Pillow Book, which was not a good movie. You definitely saw.
That was McGregor. With Ewan McGregor, Ewan McGregor's pecker or whatever.
Yeah. And he was the star. The penis was the star of the movie. Anyway, and in The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover, which was a good movie by Greenaway, thanks to Helen Mirren. And it was just a good movie otherwise. But,
was Helen Mirren flashing flesh in that one?
Well, I imagine she was, but I don't really remember. I do remember that he showed a penis in that one because
holy smokes.
I can't give away the ending. But it was there.
Well,
so,
Peter Greenaway.
Yeah.
You sly devil. Well, it's actually nothing.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess if you can't win them with the art of your film, then just flash on a penis, and maybe it'll sell it. But it didn't sell it for us on this one or The Pillow Book. Those movies were just terrible.
Peter Greenaway's film explores the mind of a creative genius. I don't know if he's creative or a genius. Facing the desires and fears of love, sex, and death through the passionate days that help shape the rest of the career of one of the greatest masters of cinema. That's fascinating. I suspect he's a master of overstatement. So if you ever see film footage of Lenin. It's fake, okay? Lenin, talking to the masses, and he's got, like it's just, like there's flags flying. Is that the way it is? There's stuff like that. It's kind of at an angle, and he looks like a comic book hero or something like that. I think that's Eisenstein. When you see the stuff that's based on, like Lenin's just sitting there, he's got Trotsky, ultimately Trotsky and some of the others that are there near the podium. They got, I'll have to review a book that I've gone through called The Commissar Disappears. So they, Stalin had these dudes airbrushed even before airbrushing existed out of the photos and stuff like that. But he had to keep Lenin there. It'd be hilarious if it had these people being addressed by nobody. See, but that's the way Stalin operated. That's the way the commies operated. So yeah, this guy had done. That's in his picture, October, Eisenstein's picture, October. And he's saying, and it probably is true, that when it was released on the English-speaking world, it was called 10 Days That Shook the World. And the world's still shaking with laughter. Like that. That's what came of the Russian Revolution. This is the way the revolution ends. This is the way the revolution ends. This is the way revolution ends. Not with a bang, 1991, but with a whimper. And we're laughing. We're still laughing. And the capitalists are laughing all the way to the bank. Or they were until that latter-day commie Putin took it over. Took over Russia. And Stalin was laughing at this guy. This is in 31. I don't know what exactly the story is about him ending up. He's rejected in Hollywood. Like, was he escaping from Stalin? It doesn't really seem to have explained it that well. But he returns to Stalinist Russia. So he's rejected by Hollywood. Like Hollywood had better. And, it still had its commies. Like, my understanding is Charlie Chaplin was a commie. And then there were fellow travelers. Upton Sinclair's wife, I think, is portrayed in this movie. Upton Sinclair was kind of like a person who did exposés. I think his famous one is an expose of the meatpacking industry in the United States. We
were talking about that recently. You were asking me, well, were we talking about that recently? That was that show about food, the documentary.
Well, there you go. You were mentioning someone Upton. I didn't know who you were talking about.
And I think it was John Updike that I mentioned, though.
Yeah, you said Updike, and I'm going, John Updike, he's a novelist. So, yeah, that's what you said.
So I think that's what I said.
Yeah, you said Updike, and then I was going, John Updike? What?
Yeah.
But it would have been Upton Sinclair.
Yeah, but I think that's how in your mind, you had thought about that.
It's amazing how I made the connection, because Updike and Upton, I wasn't able to draw it. I was able to figure out Upton.
Yeah, I'm glad I figured out where you thought that you'd heard that before.
I figured it out. Anyway, this is okay. I'm going to mention kind of at the end. They say Eisenstein returned to the Soviet Union. It's kind of like the sequel to the movie. When, oftentimes I'll have a voiceover.
Yeah.
And he went back to the Soviet Union, and I was going, I can't recall this guy living a long life, Eisenstein. He's not terribly important to me, like he's one of these guys like Stanislavski's supposed to be such a great genius. He's one of these guys that came up. I think he's the guy that started method acting, taken over by Strasberg, and followed up by people like Marlon Brando and Jane Fonda. And, I don't know who all was into method acting. I think Marilyn Monroe might have taken a little bit of this stuff. I don't know if it really worked that well for her. It didn't work poorly for her. And, but I'm willing to bet Stalin killed Eisenstein. So going along, thumping along, and then it comes to the voiceover. He made it until 1948. Eisenstein did. And I'm going, yeah. So do you remember the story? What they were saying?
Yeah, he was saying that he had a signal with his neighbors if anything was wrong or whatever. He'd bang on the pipes, and the neighbors didn't hear it
When he was having a heart attack, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going, yeah. I'm pretty sure by then various entities like the CIA and the KGB had the ability to induce heart attacks in people. And like, who's to say who would be doing the coroner's report on his death?
Yeah, that's true too. And when you said it, I thought, well, you're probably right. I mean, they wouldn't have been, like, the communists in Russia wouldn't have been too thrilled with his homosexual lifestyle.
Well, they were saying Stalin had made homosexuality illegal. And I don't know what the penalties would have been.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the penalty would be whatever Stalin wanted, right?
And the fact that, like, if he was homosexual and they could use it against him, then that would be great. But he seemed pretty flamboyant about it. And plus, he got rejected from Hollywood, so the Communist Party would have probably loved to have him in Hollywood producing films. But,
they would have been enthused about Charlie Chaplin doing that sort of stuff.
I mean, he had no use to them then. As
So,
far as I could see.
like what they're suggesting is, Hollywood's not ready for this. Hollywood loved Charlie Chaplin. You know what I'm saying? If Eisenstein actually had some talent, he would have made it in Hollywood.
Yeah. And honestly, you were talking about another thing. You were saying, and I heard a bit at the end, the woman was talking about all of his books, how it takes so long to move or whatever, and you were talking about how they'd mentioned all the books that he had. But in the movie, they hadn't shown anything to suggest that he was a reader.
Yeah,
so,
they didn't do anything to suggest he actually, well, not much, that he was a filmmaker. He was saying, I shot 250 miles of film. Did you see him shooting more than a couple of miles? They showed a few people taking some photos and stuff like that, but when you're doing that, you kind of have to work. That was just sloughed over by the film. Did you get much of a sense of Mexicanos there? Like you'll get criticism of
no, he seemed to be on holiday.
Yeah.
He was
Vietnamese
living the lush life in Mexico.
Yeah.
And,
go ahead. No,
so I got the impression that he wasn't a reader. He wasn't very smart. I mean, who, honestly, in his position, who would want to go back to Russia? Who would be... Why?
Other people did it. Like Maxim Gorky was a big, enthusiast for the revolution and for communism and stuff like that. He changed his name. I can't remember what his original name was.
Yeah,
Gorky means bitter.
Surely anybody who's in his position, like really homosexual and flaunting it, whatever, he'd have to know. He'd have to know what was going to happen to him. Or
why
suspect.
did Gorky go back? He went back and, he died young. And I think the consensus now is that he was whacked at the orders of Stalin. Maxim Gorky. And he's famous. Penguin. I've got a Penguin version of a translation of Gorky's My Childhood.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. I have no idea.
Well,
I mean, I didn't watch it.
Well, I think they were
both
both stupid,
Yeah.
They both kind of believed in the revolution. Wow, stupid
I just
people.
watched the last, half an hour, and it was too long. Too much. Watching
It
half
was
an hour
incredible.
was too much.
How long did it? Yeah, it was incredible.
I don't know. I think it wasn't a long movie, but it seemed long.
Man. And if you suffer from motion sickness, watch out. You'll get motion sickness just from, now maybe Eisenstein was bipolar or something like that. He's just wandering around the set, didn't you get a little bit of motion sickness with him just wandering around?
Yeah.
But by times the camera is wandering around even worse than him and stuff like that. It's a dreadful film.
Well, you have 5 minutes to talk
5
about
minutes.
your book if you want to, or more.
Well, I'll just finish up this. I've got a few more things to say. Big criticism of Vietnam films in the 70s and probably all the way up now coming from the nifty shifty lefties was, oh man, they never focused on the Vietnamese people. Like, hey, like when you're doing a film, when you're doing a novel, like you can't do these big, wide expanses and stuff like that. You're basically focusing on one person and maybe a few people around them. So you're supposed to, hey, Ho Chi Minh, it's, remember the Robin Williams thing, Good Morning Vietnam and stuff like that? That was a criticism of that. Well, he's doing a radio program. What's he supposed to do? Hey, Ho, just phoned you up, dude. What's your view? What's your view of this? Can we get this on the radio? Good Morning America in Vietnam or whatever it is. Yeah, come on. You guys are such hosers. And you when you're doing, all you want to do is get your view of a skewed view of things in there. You have no clue. You don't care about. You don't study history. You don't study geography. It's just whatever you inject into the situation, you stupid pukes. Now, so I hardly got any sense that it was in Mexico. It was just like in his hotel room, him giving it a shower, the guy, Palomino, giving him a shower and stuff like that. It showed him getting diarrhea and vomiting at the same time. Stuff. Get ready to. There's just a little. There's too much wang in this. Like he's always waving his wang in the camera. And when he isn't, he's waving his ass. And his ass ain't good enough to be. And the wang, I'm telling you, he's hanging a rat, but it's like one of those super sombreros, if you know what I mean. Oh, it's disgusting. But yeah, so it shows him vomiting at least twice, having diarrhea, serious diarrhea, and that's not fun. Like I kind of have trouble with diarrhea, but I've never had diarrhea like he had because of the treatments that I take. I have to take medication for the diarrhea. So this is absolutely, unacceptably. Well, how does this guy get funding? I know, I'll be reviewing a book called Anarchism Now, put out in 2004. Get ready, you nifty, shifty lefties. Funded. It's full of anti-Semitism. You stupid assholes sorry about the French, are saying that we live in a systemically racist society. We live in a systematically anti-Semitic society. At least when you guys are in power. The Liberals were in power and funded this. Canada Council grant, the BC government funded it. Anarchism Now. It's talking about Jews occupying Palestine. If someone said about Guyanai, the Bloods occupying their reserve out there, that would be racist. When you say Israel's occupying their native land, that's anti-Semitic, and it's funded two different, not just the Canada Council, another Canadian initiative, systematically anti-Semitic. Anarchism Now. Get lost, you idiots.